I told my new job I was fluent in Spanish. Then they introduced me to our biggest client in Spanish. Okay, so this is easily the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me at work. And I still can't believe I let it get this far before someone stopped me. A few years ago, I was interviewing for a job I really, really wanted. Good pay, great office, the whole thing. Near the end of the interview, almost as an afterthought, the hiring manager asked if I spoke any other languages. Now, the honest answer was that I took 2 years of Spanish in high school, remembered maybe 11 words, and could order a burrito if the menu had pictures. But something happened in my brain in that moment. Some tiny, panicked, job-hungry voice took over my mouth, and I heard myself say, with complete confidence, "Oh yeah, I'm fluent in Spanish." I got the job 3 days later. For the first 2 months, this lie cost me absolutely nothing. Nobody asked, nobody cared. I quietly hoped everyone would just forget I'd ever said it. Then, on a random Tuesday, my manager stopped by my desk looking way too excited. She told me our company's biggest client, a distributor based in Mexico City, was flying in for a meeting that Friday. And since I was our Spanish speaker, I'd be joining the meeting to help make them feel welcome. She said this the exact same way you'd tell someone good news. I smiled, said something like, "Of course, happy to help," and then spent the walk back to my desk having what I can only describe as a quiet internal emergency. I had 3 days. 3 days to somehow become fluent in a language I had at that point actively avoided speaking for almost a decade. I did the only reasonable thing a grown adult in this situation could do. I downloaded a language app and tried to cram like it was a final exam I'd forgotten I had. By Thursday night, I could confidently say things like, "The cat is under the table," and "My name is," followed immediately by nothing else useful whatsoever. I could not, for example, say quarterly earnings projections, or supply chain logistics, or literally anything that might come up in an actual business meeting with actual business people. Friday morning arrived far too quickly. The client walked in, warm, friendly, clearly expecting to speak comfortably in their first language for at least part of the meeting, because again, someone had told them we had a fluent Spanish speaker on our team. My manager introduced me first. She said my name, and then beaming with pride, added, "And she'll be helping translate today." Friday morning arrived far too quickly. The client turned to me and said something warm and welcoming in fast, natural Spanish. I understood maybe every fourth word. I smiled, I nodded, I said "sí," with the confidence of someone who had absolutely no idea what they just agreed to. For the next uncomfortable 30 seconds, I attempted to piece together a sentence using every single word I actually knew, which resulted in something along the lines of, and I am not exaggerating this even slightly, "The cat, mucho gusto, table, good, yes, meeting." The client's smile slowly turned into the specific kind of polite confusion you give someone when you're trying very hard not to laugh in a professional setting. My manager, sensing something had gone deeply wrong, jumped in and smoothly redirected the conversation back to English, saving me from what I can only describe as a slow-motion public collapse. I spent the rest of that meeting nodding thoughtfully at things I didn't understand and writing absolutely nothing useful in my notebook, just increasingly panicked doodles. Afterward, my manager pulled me aside, and I fully expected to get fired on the spot. Instead, she just looked at me for a long moment and said, "You don't actually speak Spanish, do you?" It wasn't even really a question. I said no. She asked why I'd said I did in the interview. I told her the honest, humiliating truth, that I panicked and wanted the job really badly. She laughed, actually laughed, for a solid 10 seconds, and told me that was, and I quote, the most relatable interview lie she'd ever heard, since apparently half the office had lied about at least one skill just to get hired. I did not get fired. I did, however, get quietly and permanently removed from the unofficial list of people who help with Spanish-speaking clients, a list I had accidentally placed myself onto with a single confident sentence 8 weeks earlier. To this day, whenever a client visit comes up, someone in that office still says, "Should we ask the cat under the table?" as a way of asking if I'm involved. I've since actually started learning Spanish for real, properly, with an actual tutor, mostly out of guilt, and partly because I never, ever want to relive 30 seconds like that again in my life. If there's a lesson here, I think it's this. Interview lies have a funny way of turning into real deadlines eventually, usually with a client flying in from another country to personally witness the consequences.